Guns in America front and center on Capitol Hill. Today's testimony in Congress. The CEOs of some top gun manufacturers were grilled by lawmakers on the House Oversight Committee about mass shootings and gun violence in America. Democrats on the panel there. They say the companies are marketing weapons of war to children and profiting from this nationwide epidemic. But the manufacturers say they're making lawful weapons in a lawful way and responsible, and the people who are pulling the triggers are the ones who should be held accountable. This morning, the hearing led to a heated exchange, which we want to show you, between Democratic Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney of New York and Marty Daniel. He's the CEO of Daniel Defense. That's the company that made the rifle that was used in the Uvalde school massacre. Listen.
Mr. Daniel, you have sent thoughts and prayers to the victims of Uvalde, but you have never accepted responsibility for selling the weapons that killed these innocent children. And you testified earlier that there has been a decline in personal responsibility. I want to give you the opportunity now to show personal responsibility. Will you accept personal responsibility for your company's role in this tragedy and apologize to the families of Uvalde?
Chairwoman Maloney, these acts are committed by murderers. The murderers are responsible.
And that was the exchange there on Capitol Hill. ABC politics reporter Brittany Shepherd joins us now. So Brittany, there you have it. Carolyn Maloney saying these companies making so much money marketing these weapons, they should be responsible. Daniel's Defense CEO Marty Daniel says, no, it is the people pulling the triggers. What's the point of this kind of exchange, do you think?
I think the point is to distance yourself, if you are a gun manufacturer CEO, as far away as you can from the perpetrator and from the American hurt. They know that they are essentially having to offer counter-programming to testimony from family, friends, survivors themselves, eyewitnesses to gun violence that has shattered their life, only given them trauma. It's really hard to counter-program against American suffering. But what you're not going to hear, I think, from these CEOs that we heard just from Daniel is an apology. And that's really predicated what we all heard this morning and this afternoon from these other gun CEOs who are trying to humanize their companies in any way they can, saying that they're American-made, that they're made of mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, too. I mean, I think that kind of defense falls on quiet ears when Americans and voters are really grappling with why. Why is this happening again and again and again? How many children have to die? And that's the kind of question Democratic Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney presented and grilled these CEOs about. But they really showed that they were unable to budge and say, though, well, that's law enforcement's job, or that's Congress's job, that's tracking mental illness and care workers' job. That's not our job. We want to make, we want to help Americans who are trying to hunt. We really care about Second Amendment, and the rest, is all on you guys.
Ultimately, as you suggest, this is going to have to be a cooperative effort across all those communities with different values, different traditions, different cultures. The committee is calling for accountability. They actually want legal action against these companies. We've heard for those kinds of calls before after the Sandy Hook massacre with Remington. It doesn't happen. There's actually a law now that makes it very difficult to hold arms manufacturers for the actions of people who buy their products. But so what do you expect to see? What should we expect to see on this front, the front, that substantive front, accountability, now, this time around?
Well, that Remington lawsuit is really interesting, and I think emblematic of what communities can do now. We're seeing that the bulk of the responsibility is falling to the hands of those who've experienced the trauma, not to members of Congress and not within the chambers of Washington, D.C. It's really interesting. In 2015, the families and friends of survivors of Sandy Hook sued Remington, a gun manufacturer, saying, you're responsible. You marketed this gun towards young people. You helped enable a shooter to come and kill our young children and take their lives away from them. It took almost 10 years, Terry, about 7 years, for Remington to cough up $70 million. It's the highest kind of settlement, 73, I believe. And while it showed that there's going to pretty much be no hope for them in Congress, that there is an avenue, though it's a very expensive one and one that takes a long time. And that money isn't going to bring their child or their friend's life back, is it? No. But it's a little bit of hope that there's a way to get these kind of companies on the line, albeit one that's going to take a very long time to come to roost.
You know, we always cover this issue as such a divisive issue, and obviously there are two cultures in America when it comes to guns. There's an America for which that's part of the tradition of the communities and families, even with the fathers and passing down their weapons to sons, and then there's the other America. But really, the polls show there's widespread agreement on some very basic issues that we can't get done. Do you think this kind of hearing moves the ball down the field on those things? Background, universal background checks, et cetera?
Well, if you're friends and family of the affected, you sure hope so. But we got to remember that we are in an election year, and Jody Ice's testimony today, essentially, he's a member of the committee, is any indication of that. He was able to turn his few minutes on the dais against Chairwoman Maloney and pivot gun legislation talks about defunding the police, something so far off topic, but something we've been hearing on the campaign trail for a few months and that we're going to hear just starting next week when Congress goes on August recess. Many of these lawmakers are going to have to return home to their home districts on a really, really difficult midterm race. I think something like we've never seen before, and are going to have to answer to constituents why they voted to try to move on gun legislation in a Senate that they know that's going to fail, right? It's a ceremonial vote, and it's hard to think of this stuff as political, right? But there's real life implications. People are dying, children are dying. But all this at the end of the day is political, and they know that Republicans in these really swingy districts are going to throw everything they can, money, digital ads, anything they can put on Twitter, social media, against them, right? So their backs are up against a wall. I know families are saying that's not enough. Who cares? Lives are on the line, but people in Congress are saying, well, our jobs are on the line. If you want us to stay in Congress and legislate for you, we're going to have to take a big pass on this one.
Well, and that raises the question. I'll just button that down, which is for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, their majority's on the line. It's very narrow right now. And so the key members of their caucus are often members in these purple, even slightly red districts. And gun control, the kind of proposals that are out there, probably not winning issues. Do you get a sense that the Democratic leadership is kind of backing off this a little bit to keep that Democratic majority in Congress?
Oh, absolutely, and they're going to point to recent wins from the White House. They made incremental strides on gun reform legislation, tightening down on background checks, red flag laws. They're going to say, look, we're doing what we can, because they're also fighting national narratives about crime. It's hard to conflate the two, but it's happening on the road. It's happening for voters who are scared about crime. So Democrats are hoping that what they've done so far will help them cross the finish line in November.
Great points. Brittany Shepherd, thanks very much.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.